Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent of Gold, joining you on Friday. We are one day away from Arsenal getting back in action. It almost feels like it's been an international break. It does to me. I think seeing everyone else playing in Europe and us having to sit around watching on enviously, it's kind of had a bit of an international break feel to me. It feels a long time ago that Arsenal played at Norwich, but only been 7 days. We are back in action tomorrow, looking to make it back-to-back wins in the Premier League, which will be very important ahead of that game against Spurs the following weekend, just to keep some momentum going into that game. Going to be a difficult match, I would imagine, this weekend. Or any match is difficult at the moment, but certainly Burnley away, you know exactly what you're going to get. Arsenal going to have to deal with that up at Turf Moor. They're going to have to deal with what's going to be a hostile atmosphere, always is up there. They really don't like Arsenal. They're going to have to deal with a lot of aerials into the penalty area, and the defence is going to have to cope with that, and they're going to have to take their chances when they can. So a difficult afternoon to come for Arsenal tomorrow. Fingers crossed they can get through it. Certainly looking good on the injury and team news front. We'll get to that a little bit later in this video. I'll look at some of the big decisions facing Mikel ahead of that match, ahead of kickoff. What's he going to do in terms of formations, team selection? I will end with my predicted 11 as always ahead of the game. But a couple of things I wanted to talk about. First of all, a little bit about Alexandre Lacazette. I'm not sure if you saw it yesterday. Mikel was speaking about him in his press conference. He was asked a question. You know, he's only featured, I think, for about 30 minutes so far this season, because obviously he's had COVID issues and stuff, and people saying, you know, what's his is this it now? Are you beginning to, is he going to be sort of phased out this season ahead of his departure on a free transfer next summer when his contract up? This is what he had to say. He said, look, no, he's fully involved. You've given the reasons why he hasn't played more minutes, and he will be back to the form that he can achieve. I'm sure that he will be instrumental in our success. It's going to be really interesting what Mikel does with Alexandre Lacazette. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. What do you think Arsenal should do with Lacazette this season? Looks very likely now that he will leave on a free transfer at the end of the season when his contract runs out. Doubtful. I can't see Arsenal giving him a new deal at this point. I mean, you never know. You can never say never. But you would think it's looking more and more likely now that he will go. There was options for him. Well, Arsenal would have been open for him to go this summer. Nothing really materialised, so he stayed. I think he's the sort of player, I don't think he's going to sort of down tools or anything like that this season, just wait for his contract to run out. I think he'll try and go out on a high. But I can't see. And should Arsenal give him a new contract? Let me know what you think with that. You know, is there an opportunity to extend Lacazette and keep him for another couple of years rather than looking to move him on in the summer and refresh things? Personally, I think Arsenal need a bit of a revamp in that striker department anyway. I don't see the point in giving Lacazette a new deal now, even if he wants one. I think you let him go in the summer. Unfortunately, you're going to have to take a financial hit because you're not going to get any money for him. But I think it's just time to move him on, bring in a younger, fresher striker to really push Auba for that starting spot and start to shake up that striker department. I think it's going to be one of the priority areas next summer in the transfer window, along with central midfield. And so that's what I think of it. But please do let me know what you think. What do you reckon Mikel Arteta should do with Alexandre Lacazette this season? Should he continue to play him and have him be a really sort of key player as he has been? Or do you think it's time to start easing him out potentially now of the starting 11 ahead of next summer's looks like very likely departure? Let me know as always. And also a little bit of news breaking this morning that Karl Hein has signed a new contract with Arsenal. Bit of a surprise this one, I have to admit. I thought he was going to probably end up going at the end of his current deal, which expired at the end of this coming season. 19 years old, Karl Hein, Estonia international, played very, very well in the recent international break against Wales. I'm sure you probably saw some of the highlights from that game. He had a really good game in that one. But he signed a new contract, which I have to admit I'm surprised at. Like I said, I thought he'd probably opt to let this deal run out and look to move on in the summer and go and be first or at least second choice somewhere. Because, you know, he's got a difficult task at Arsenal. You've got Ramsdale, who now looks like, you know, he's got the number 1 jersey. He's only 23. You've got Arthur Okonkwo, who's ahead of Karl Hein as well. He's only 19. Already at the club. So, you know, you're looking at Karl Hein, if he'll be looking ahead of him thinking, I've got 2 very young keepers ahead of me in the pecking order. So I figured he'd probably go, but he's going to stay. You would think now that he will get a decent loan move at some point in the next year, potentially next summer. I'd say that Arsenal, you know, I think it's pretty obvious that Leno's probably going to end up going in the summer. I'd imagine Arsenal will then bring in a more experienced number 2 as backup to Ramsdale for next season, Okonkwo, and then Hein will be battling out for the number 3 spot, and whoever doesn't get that At the moment, it's Okonkwo who's in that position, but if Hein can overtake him, he might back himself to do that. But whoever doesn't get the sort of number 3 spot in the squad, you'd expect they will go out and get a decent loan next season to progress. And Karl Hein's been speaking. He said, look, it means a lot to extend my contract with this big club, massive club with traditions. I'm very happy. It's been a long process at Arsenal. First year, I had quite a long-term injury with my wrist. It was a tough time, but I went through it well. Next season was good. We did well in the 23s. And then step by step, I got involved in the national team, got more involved with the first team. And slowly and surely, it's been good progress. My ambitions are to play to Arsenal ultimately, so I'll train hard, keep the progress going, and then hopefully get my chance. Step by step, every day I feel more comfortable. It's been a good pre-season, and I'm looking forward to this season. So congratulations to Karl Hein on his new Arsenal contract. Okay, let's talk a little bit, shall we, about Burnley. Big game for Arsenal this Saturday. Looking at sort of the big decisions Mikel's facing in this one, I think certainly I've talked about in a couple of videos this week already in terms of formations. You know, we've seen it's been a flat back 4 so far this season. He does have the option of a back 3. He's got players who can play that, and I do wonder, he must be pondering that for this one. I've mentioned it before. You know what you're going to get with Burnley. They're going to target potentially Ben White, who's not the best in the air, not the tallest. And you know what Burnley are going to do? They're going to get the ball out wide. They're going to whip the balls in constantly towards the back post, where you'd imagine Chris Wood is going to be peeling off and trying to isolate Ben White. If you play with a back 3, you give an extra little bit of protection from that. You could have Tomiyasu and Gabriel on either side of White, both very, very good in the air. You've got Ramsdale behind, who you're going to hope is going to be very commanding. He's going to need to come and claim some of these crosses when he can. And it is just an option for Mikel. Whether he does it, I would probably say no. I imagine right now, and I will give my predicted 11 at the end of this, I think he's probably going to continue with a back 4. But back 3 has to be an option that he has seriously considered at Colney this week. I'll be very surprised if it's not. You've also got the Smith Rowe. You know, Smith Rowe or Pepe. What do you do? Last week, Pepe got the nod because Smith Rowe wasn't quite fit enough because he'd been ill, but he came on and made a big difference in that second half. I thought personally, I gave Pepe my man of the match, even though his first touch was appalling at times during that game and really frustrated me. He was always on, looking dangerous whenever he got the ball. You know, he caused Norwich plenty of problems. Ultimately, it was his play that led to the goal. He could have had a few more. He was just a threat. Yes, the first touch was bad. It was, you know, I know that's been highlighted a lot on social media this week, but I do think he was still a threat. And you know, he was the one who looked like he could potentially make something happen, and ultimately did. So it's a big choice for Mikel. We know he really likes Smith Rowe. Do you bring Smith Rowe straight back in if you're going to continue with a sort of 4-2-3-1 formation? I mean, he might even go with the 4-3-3 that he ended last week with. And that made a big difference when you had Partey as a sort of holding midfielder, and then you had Smith Rowe and Odegaard in the more central areas ahead of him, and then you had Pepe and Saka out wide and Orba up front. You know, it'd be a risk, you would think, to start that, certainly away from home, where you might be under pressure. It put a lot of pressure on Partey to do very, very well and perform very well, because he would be isolated in front of the back 4. But that is another option. It's another decision that he's facing. And I talked about Thomas Partey there. It's like, do you definitely start Thomas Partey? Personally, for me, it's an absolute. As long as he's fit, you start Thomas Partey 100%. Mikel was talking about that yesterday. He said that he's been training in and out this week. His load had to be managed because of the early stages of the injury that he had. But he's pushing everyone like he always does, and he wants to be involved. We will make the decision at the weekend on what is best for him. I mean, I'd be surprised now if Thomas Partey doesn't start on Saturday at Burnley. He made a big impact like we saw against Norwich. He's had another week of training, even if he has been sort of in and out of training. He's had another week for that injury to rest and recuperate. And you would think, you know, as long as he's 90% fit, I think Thomas Partey starts. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. So that's a decision he's going to have to make. There's no Granit Xhaka, obviously. He's suspended still. Still no Mohamed El Neni. So you're kind of choosing. Last week it was Maitland-Niles and Sambi who started in midfield. I think this time I'd be surprised if we don't see a Sambi and Partey partnership at Turf Moor. So that's another of the big decisions that faces Mikel. Right, and finally today, I'm going to give my predicted 11 for this one. As always, with this is not something from information I've received or anything like that, and this isn't the 11 that I'm personally would like to see. I'm trying to predict what I think Mikel will do for this one. And as I've said previously in his videos, I think, although back 3 is an option that he would have considered, I think he will probably continue with the back four that we've seen so far this season. So I'd imagine we're going to see Ben White and Gabriel again as the centre-back partnerships in front of Aaron Ramsdale, who I fully expect to keep his place in the team ahead of Bernd Leno. So I'm going to go with the same defence that started that game against Norwich last week. So we're going to have Ramsdale in goal. We're going to have Tomiyasu right back, Ben White and Gabriel as the centre-backs, and then Kieran Tierney as the left-back. So what you would call Arsenal's first choice defence right now. Then I'm going to say Thomas Partey starts. Like I said, I'll be surprised if he doesn't. I'm going to go with Thomas Partey and Sambi Lokonga as the central midfield partnership. So that's one change from the game against Norwich last week. No Ainsley, Maitland-Niles. And then I'm going to go with Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, and I'm going to think he's going to choose Emil Smith-Rowe over Nicolas Pepe, and then Aubameyang up front. So I'm going with two changes from the team that started against Norwich last week, and that is Emil Smith-Rowe coming in for Nicolas Pepe and Thomas Partey coming in for Ainsley Maitland-Niles. So just run through that again. My predicted 11, what I think Mikel will go for against Burnley, it's going to be Ramsdale, Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel, Tierney, Partey, Sambi, Saka, Odegaard, Smith-Rowe and Aubameyang. Thank you very much for watching. If you're making the journey up to Burnley tomorrow, stay safe, have a very safe drive, and I shall see you up there. And if not, wherever you're watching around the world, enjoy it. Fingers crossed we get to celebrate another Arsenal win, and I will try and do a ratings video afterwards if I can, depending on timings and exactly what is happening, because it's always a little bit hectic at full time. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. Have a good Friday. Enjoy your weekend. I'll speak to you soon.